one of the main problems I think people have when they start thinking about projects is thinking about assigning groups. Like, how do I manage my classroom to make these groups really effective and make sure that everybody's getting the same quality experience doing the project? So just to give you background on this class that I did this in, it was a really large class. It was 22 students. I had CASAS reading scores between 230 and 220, so a pretty big range of readers, and some of the CASAS scores didn't reflect really what their reading level was, so some people were below that reading level in my assessment. I had several students in the class with severe learning disabilities, one student who was diagnosed as MR. I had 4 ESL learners, a mix of long-term returning students and new students who came in late halfway through the class because we have a lottery system. I had an age range from 20 to 70, 2 blind students, 4 students who had a really severe culturally based fight that happened before the class, and in class I had more than 2 physical incidents in the class. So that kind of represents like a typical classroom. I'm sure lots of you have dealt it's like every problem you could possibly have in one classroom, but I'm sure that elements of that all of you have worked with before. Students who like maybe haven't had the right kind of instruction before because they haven't learned that they've had a learning disability, like students with physical disabilities that limit their ability to move around the classroom, things like that that really just kind of restrain you. But I thought, wow, this is a really great opportunity for a project to let them not be all focused right in this one center of energy in the center of my classroom. I said, let's break it up, let's give them some stuff to do, and make it a little bit easier on me and on the students themselves. So what I did was I handpicked the groups. Sometimes in classes I would let them pick their own groups because lots of times they'll pick people that they know that they can work with, which if your main goal is getting them information rather than facilitating the skill of working in groups, then working with people that they know that they are comfortable working with can be a really useful tool so that they get that basic information. But because I knew that this class was extraordinarily volatile, I handpicked groups myself and I assigned them mayoral candidates. So my criteria for a group was that first, that there wouldn't be conflict between people in the group, and which didn't work out sometimes. That my secondary kind of criteria for assigning groups was making sure that they were high, low-leveled groups. So this meant that people that I felt had really been excelling in the class were paired with people that I thought were kind of lagging a little bit behind or were struggling with some of the more basic elements that we had talked about. So I want to emphasize that that didn't mean I put all the fast people in one group and the people who took longer to do things in a slower group. It's not like that, because in fact, I think that slower learners aren't necessarily the learners who are struggling, they just are working slower. So I tried to really assess which learners were getting the hang of the concepts already and were very solidly mastering concepts, and paired them with students who are still working at those concepts so that they could bring each other up. And some other considerations I had were interest. What candidates did I feel that certain groups might be more interested in doing? Attendance, obviously, which is a huge problem when you're teaching classes where the attendance is really not consistent, and I see that all the time. So I tried to make sure that at least one person in every group was a consistent attender. And usually the consistent attenders don't mind doing a little bit of extra work in a group because they're the people who want to be pulling the most information and the most value out of their classes. So the attendance issue was definitely an issue, so I tried to make sure that that was distributed equally in all the groups. And also just the importance of the candidates, because I knew that some learners were going to be getting information from these posters and using that to go forward and vote. I thought that it was very important that the information presented was accurate, and also that candidates who were more legitimately in the mayoral race were represented by a group that was going to be there on the day that we presented them, and that would really do a good job of presenting. So I tried to pick the DC mayoral candidates who were at the top, Mayor Gray and Muriel Bowser. I tried to give them to students who really were going to unpack what they had to say and were going to be there when we had to present.